So, hello, Joyce.
Hi, Sam.
I'm here with Joyce O'Leary, one of our ambassadors. Now, Joyce, you were kind enough to share with me your story and your career journey not so long ago, and I thought it would make a great podcast for other IAB members or just other people who are interested in a career in finance or thinking about it. Because I think there's been many career events, and I think that it would really resonate with a lot of people
Yes.
who may hopefully be encouraged to take similar steps and gain the same success that you're enjoying now in your own
Mm-hmm.
business. Um, so should we start at the very beginning, I guess?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Um, and one thing I thought was really interesting is, and it's probably not something you would expect when you think of bookkeepers and accountants, but you said that you struggled at school and numbers weren't your first
No,
focus.
no,
Tell us
no,
about
not at
this.
all. I had a terrible time at school. Luckily, my parents were able to send me to a small school that had small classes in it. So
Right.
I had teachers that were able to spend quality time. There's only 20 students in each class, which was fantastic for
Yeah.
where I was. And my headmaster told me I would amount to nothing more than stacking shelves in Tesco's. Was you see, and cookery was my thing. I was fantastic at cooking, and I even did an O level in cookery, but maths and reading and writing was just not me. I had a wonderful teacher that gave up her lunch times to help me, and it did help me. And they did say that I was sort of on the dyslexia spectrum,
Right.
but what we found out is that when it came to me doing stuff, I was fine. But as soon as somebody put me in an exam environment, I just
Mm.
fell to pieces. I just couldn't do it. But I was really good at learning the stuff and showing other people how to do it. But when I was sat down and questioned and had to do all the exam, that I couldn't cope. My exam results were not as wonderful as my peers, but they were better than expected.
Right.
So I did well. So I went off to college to learn how to be a hotel receptionist, come sort of thing, thinking catering was my thing.
Yeah.
And my older sister was a college lecturer who happened to be my teacher.
Oh.
It really didn't work because she used to get me to help her plan the lessons the night before and type up all the notes. So I'd be sitting in the lessons going, well, I know all this. I did it last night with her. So that didn't work. So I gave up college and then I started working just part time as an office admin assistant. And they then started giving me some bookkeeping, data entry to do.
Yeah.
And it just grew from there. So,
Oh,
and I got experience, worked my way up to be an assistant accountant for a firm and run the payroll. And then I found out payroll was quite my bag, and I was quite
right.
quite good at the payroll. And as I say, the moved on and moved on. Found out that working for big companies wasn't for me. Didn't Not at all. I hated working for a big company. So,
Right.
but I got made redundant, and every time I got made redundant a few times. I used to work for Fives, the fruit distribution company,
Yes, yeah, I do know them.
and yeah, I was the purchase ledger supervisor there. And
Right.
when the company was folded, and I was kept on, so I got made redundant, but then I was kept on to produce everybody's redundancy pays and help the accountants of the company
Yeah.
close the company down.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that I learned loads doing that,
Yeah,
and
because I.
then moved on to a better job, and then a better job, and then as I say, back in 2002, I was working for a small practice, and it was run by three partners, and two of them were
Mm,
married. They got divorced, and this partnership split.
yeah.
And within 2 weeks, they called me back and said, "Can you come back and help with the payroll
Hmm.
for their share?" So I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And then they encouraged me to start up on my own.
Oh, that's
So
because
yeah,
it does seem when you read through your story, which is what I thought was quite. It's like it gets touched your career path in
yeah,
certain points, doesn't it? Where it just takes the
yeah,
most next natural step. It seems to be a
exactly,
common theme. You
exactly.
seem to have made some really good relationships.
Hmm.
And do you think, the relationships that you've made during your career have helped you? I mean, you mentioned there the experience of shutting that company down and working with those people gave you experience in that
Yes.
field.
Mm.
How do you feel that the people you've met along the way have contributed to your next step?
Well, a lot of the kinder people, shall we say, have taught me to been patient with me and
Mm,
taught me from the beginning. But then I've come across people that, especially with that have been almost bullies in a way. They've,
right.
you can tell working in a large environment. And I always say to young accountants as I come across them and trainees, if you can, work for a small company because a small company will nurture you and teach you. And I
Mm,
really noticed when I was working with the smaller companies, we were taught things and shared jobs and worked as a team. We would answer the phone, we would make clients tea and coffee, I would help the accountants when they were busy, and it was a proper team effort. But as the companies grew and
mm,
got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you had people coming in with attitudes that they were in charge and had the exam experience but not the physical work experience.
right.
So after a while they'd suddenly realised that actually we were right because we're the ones that had got the work experience. But then I found working for the much larger firm, it was very bitchy and
Mm,
very nasty, and the way I was treated was terrible, absolutely terrible. So I left. It. It made me so ill. I couldn't sleep at night. It was horrible.
yeah,
Absolutely horrible. Yeah.
such a it's horrible to be in like a toxic environment, isn't it? And
Yes.
that's one of
Yeah.
the thing I was going to ask you, and you've touched on it already, but you in was it 2030 you became a payroll compliance manager. So overnight the size of the company swelled significantly, didn't it? From
It did. There was 12 of us, and when they originally merged, it went. So there was about 7 or 8 of us, and then they merged, and it became a company of about 40.
yeah.
And instead of all sitting in our own little teams, it was the partners were in goldfish bowls, glass walled offices along the side of
Mm,
the room, and the rest of us were all in one office. And it was um, hard work at
yeah.
first, and especially when you're doing stuff like payroll, it needs to be in a quiet environment sometimes.
Mhm.
And so I was offered a part-time. They wanted a compliance manager to go round to all the different offices. So I thought, oh, well, I'll try that. That sounds like fun. But it meant that I had to be an employee. So I was very lucky. I managed to negotiate a deal that kept me on the same hours that I was on part when I was self-employed. The only thing was because I was a key holder, I'd go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I'd leave at 11 o'clock in the morning because I'd done my work.
Yeah, done your hours.
So there was sometimes a little bit of bad feeling for that, but
Hmm.
it was just that was the agreement that I had. And sometimes I'd need to be going to the other offices. So, but I loved the doing the policies and the procedures for the payroll and sorting out all the training courses for all the rest of the teams. It was really good. And the main partner that I worked for, occasionally she'd call me in and get her to help me with get me to help with bookkeeping, because
Right.
she knew I had, when I worked for her, just for her, I had and was doing bookkeeping, I had done all Bibles for everybody to give them the procedures for each individual client because everybody's different.
Yeah.
So, and it was nice to hear that after I'd left, there were people that were actually still using the bookkeeping Bibles that I had created when I was there. So that was nice. But
Yeah.
I had I had a great time. But then I had 10 weeks off sick.
When
When I got back, there were issues. So
Mm.
I I decided to leave. I was getting married, so I thought I'd start a new job with my new name. And
Yeah, well, it
yeah,
seems 2016 and 2017 were big years for you, weren't they?
yes, they were, yeah.
And what would you say? I mean, obviously, the changes that you're experiencing at work, like I say, another natural next step, kind of like
Yeah.
put you on
Mhm.
the path to setting up on your own.
Well,
And
I had already been set up on my own back in 2002. So I had the two jobs. So I had my business and I had the part-time employment as well. So
right,
yeah.
so it was really, I suppose, more of a focus because you'd have had more time to focus on your own business, I
Yeah.
guess. And
Yeah.
drawing from all of your experience that you'd had in a
Mhm.
bigger company,
Mhm.
what would you say were the key things that you took with you to focus on during that time? Even though you'd already established, what were your goals at that time for spending more time in your own
Well,
business?
my first goal was to be happy and
Yeah.
to deal with the stress in a better way than I had been. I suffered from endometriosis, which is not a very nice thing to suffer
No,
from, and
not
which
at
is
all.
why I needed to work part time. I couldn't physically work full time, and so obviously after my surgery, I didn't have it anymore. So, but I wanted to make sure that my health and my happiness, I didn't want to be that kind of person that only ever spoke about work, and what was issuing.
Yeah.
And doing it on my own, I realized I was able to get the variety again, do some of the bookkeeping and some of the payroll.
Hmm.
Um, and my an accountant that I had worked with ever since I had started with a smaller firm, she'd gone off and worked with another practice, and she became my mentor.
Right.
And she's the lady that encouraged me to join the IAB because I was already a member of the CIPP.
Right.
And I'd looked at the ICB, but you needed to do an exam, and you still do an exam to fit it, to
Hmm.
join.
Mm.
And I knew that the exam side of things, because even now doing the compliance stuff, Sam, honestly, I fall to pieces when it comes to doing um, the training for the AML, because I have to do the test afterwards. It's sort of
Right.
like,
I see.
oh, it's like it's awful. But my colleague said to me, "How about the IAB?" And I'd met a lady called Kelly Lant, which is one of your ladies a long time ago. I'd met her at a joint CIPP event, and she'd said, "But you don't need to do an exam to come and be part of the IAB." And in all honesty, I haven't looked back since I joined you. The IAB have supported me in growing my business and, encouraged me to do networking and everything. So, and it's also, you say about what did I take from the employer when I left there, it
Hmm.
was the fact of people actually saying thank you to me, and I was being thanked for the work that I was doing, and I could see that I was helping people more, working
Yeah.
for myself. I actually got to see the results of what I was doing,
Yeah.
and
It's
the
much more
fact,
fulfilling, isn't
yes,
it? I
it is.
guess.
It's
Well,
so,
obviously it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And being able to say to people, actually, no, I don't want to work with you anymore.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Well, I
So
suppose
yeah,
that's helped. That's, a real positive step in you dealing with stress and how you've obviously
yes,
gone away and made those decisions that will
yeah.
make you feel better, in
Mhm,
terms of how you want to
mhm,
progress with your career, how you want to live your life. Because one of the things I have noticed, which again I think is really good, is that you and your employees now work part-time to get that balance.
yeah.
And I think, for people who are self-employed, it's
Mhm,
especially when it's your own business, knowing when to switch off,
yeah.
knowing when to step back. Could
Mhm.
you, share with us how you kind of work with that, how you make it work with you and your employees?
So what we did was, I didn't want to work full time because of outside commitments. So I've got an elderly mother
Mhm.
and mother-in-law that I need to. Um, my mum is now actually in a care home, but prior to that, she lived in Suffolk, which was a 4-hour round trip for me. And I used
Wow.
to visit her once a week. So
Yeah.
I couldn't really work full time. And I didn't really want to be honest with you. Sadly, we don't have children.
Mhm.
So there is no real money issues from that point of view.
Yeah.
So And it means that if I want to go on holiday, I can just, the beauty of working for myself is I just take my laptop and I go. I don't need to think, my clients don't know where I am half the time, which is one of the good things of working, working for yourself. And I wanted to be able to help people. That was my main key, of being able to help people. And a lot of people say work-life balance, but mine was just like, I'm more interested in going out for lunch than doing work, to be honest with you.
My own heart there, Joyce.
Yeah. And so it's just Nikki. I met Nikki, who works with me, and she wanted to work part-time as well. And we're just very picky. We're not accountants. We don't let anybody think that we're accountants. We do bookkeeping. We do bookkeeping to trial balance, and then we pass it on to an accountant for them to do what they need to be done. We do a lot of bookkeeping for clients that are just self-employed, self-assessment, and they were the ones that I wanted to concentrate on helping. They were the ones that, and we get so much out of seeing them grow, and then they grow to a stage where either I train them on how to use the software and they go off and do it themselves, or they then move on to a different different bookkeeper that can do accounts as well. So
right, okay. But I suppose it's still nice though. It's a real, I kind of get from a real teaching mentality. So from when it started at school, the way that you were taught, people taking that time, it's very much, you can see how you've taken that through your career, which I think is nice, because it must have been a really positive experience for you. So to then take that through, again, people who have small businesses, like bookkeepers, are like a savior, especially if they talk to them in a language that they can understand.
And I do find that when I go to networking meetings, they go to me, but I don't understand what my accountant is saying to me. And I've said to them, one lady, I wasn't even a bookkeeper, but I just said, do you want me to come with you and for a meeting? And I went with her, and he was saying, oh, well, your income and your expenditure and, your debtors and your creditors. And she's looking at me, and you could see she didn't know. And I went, the people that owe you money and the money that you owe to people. And she was like, oh, right, I understand now. But it's just, and you do find some accountants, not all, I don't mean all, but some accountants do tend to use flowery language, shall we say, to deliberately confuse people. I'm sure they do, So
no, I think that translation is often invaluable, and you said it before. I mean, even like touching on AML, which again is a really scary subject for some people, and some, and you can understand, because it's I suppose legislation that it goes from the very highest level all the way down to if you're a bookkeeper with just a few clients. So, and arguably the same applies. So to translate that in a way that applies to you, it takes an awful lot of understanding, really.
It doesn't, and that's what I was frustrated with when I had my AML inspection, is because because of the personality, because of how I'm made. He absolutely terrified me, because he was asking, and I knew the answers to the questions, but because I wasn't using the language that the gentleman that was doing my inspection was expecting me to use, he was of the opinion that I didn't understand what I was talking about. And I'm sitting there, I know all the answers, but it's just, so it's my tip for anybody that does want to join and then become a licensed member is do your policy the way you have to, but then have it in your language that you understand, so that what you're talking about. But
I think that's one of the things that we learning from people like yourselves and getting that feedback. It's one of the things that we're really trying to do now from an AML perspective, is to put it in straightforward language and make it a personable thing, so people aren't afraid to talk to us about it and ask for help. So hopefully there's been some positive steps made in that way, so people don't feel how you were feeling. And you also got yourself some separate office space as well. And do you find that helps with you and your employees when you know, with part-time, that do you tend to go to work for work and then move away? Does that help, having a separate space?
It helps having a separate space in the fact that when we're busy, it's not all stored up in my spare bedroom. So in the room that I'm in now, I'm sitting on a fold-up desk. So I'm working from home. I always work from home 1 week a month when I'm doing my payrolls, because I need, as I say, just because I've got a faster internet at home than I have in the office. In the office, I just have a SIM card in the back of a modem,
Right.
which is perfectly all right for doing the bookkeeping, but it's just I find it quicker for sending the wage slips to do it all from home. And that's the flexibility of working for yourself. You can work either in the office or at home. It's a godsend for clients to come and visit us, because they're not coming to my house, they're not going to Nikki's house, they're meeting us in the office, and we can store stuff there. So it really is a storage space. But I've been there this morning and done bags of scanning ready to, and that is now sitting in auto entry doing its stuff while you and I are talking, and then I'll go back and start working on that. And then
excellent. Well, I think it's like you say, it's making that positive choice and positive step to get how you want to work and live, isn't it? It seems to be working very well. And your client list seems to again evolve quite organically. You mentioned as one client leaves, another one kind of which is brilliant.
Yeah, I found that actually from when I was working at the small accountancy practice. We used to find if a client resigned, we'd get a new one. It just seems to happen that way.
Yeah,
so
which is great.
And as I put in what I wrote to you, I had one of my first clients was the accountancy practice who I worked with till 2017. There was another client which was a children's day nursery, and I worked with them, and then I worked with them during they had 2 settings. So they sold one, and I stayed with one of the other settings and did their bookkeeping. And then I continued doing the payroll for the other one. Since then, the bookkeeping side had stopped, but sometime this year I will be no longer working with them because they're now retiring.
Wow.
So I have been with this nursery from when they started their business, watched them grow, watch them sell their businesses, and it's been wonderful. I've been so lucky to be involved in that, and they're ones that I would go for an accountant's meeting to.
Right. Okay.
And sit there and
nice. Explain it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But and another thing you were saying about is what would I say to people? Networking. You can become, when you work for yourself, I do all the networking because I can't afford to pay non-chargeable time for somebody to go out to network, so I do it. But don't overdo it, because when you're doing the jobs that we're doing, we're the ones that are physically doing the work. We're not selling a product. So I know a lot of people join 5 or 6 networking groups, but my best advice would just be to keep to a couple.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be inundated, I suppose, won't you?
Exactly.
And it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. And if you find that you're at a networking group and you're not getting clients, don't keep going just because you like the people.
Yeah, treat
you
it
do
as
need to be a bit ruthless and say, actually, no, I'm not getting any business from this one. Let me move. I joined the town that I live in is a big town, business and development town.
Right.
And the first meeting I went to, I got a client, and I've been a member of those for 3 years, and I'm regularly getting clients from there, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Have a good selection process then.
Yeah.
You mentioned as well that you created your own website, and I think that it's the air that, as we say, online, whether it be websites, social, online marketing is sometimes a bit of a grey area for bookkeepers and accountants. How did you find the experience of setting up your own website?
Well, to be honest with you, I had looked at it in the past and thought, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And then the wonderful, who's sadly no longer with us, Simon Jordan from
Yeah.
he spent some time with me, and a lot of other people that were doing the coffee mornings when they first started during lockdown, when we used to have one a week. And he spent some time with me on my own. He did this offer, and he just spoke to me about what you needed to put in the website and all this stuff. And encouraged by him and obviously Janet and the rest of the team, I went on to GoDaddy and I built myself a website.
Excellent. So, well done you. And do you find that as a way that do you gain clients from that as well? People looking online, or?
In all honesty, I've only gained one client from it. I only want to work for clients that are in my local area because I like to meet them. I rather meet them in person than, you know. And a couple of my clients are accountant clients, so I do work for their clients. So it's quite useful being local in my town because then I get to meet them all, which is lovely. And I go and work in their offices as well. So it's not just working at home. I'll go and visit them as well in their office.
So a lot of connections, and obviously you're a very, you know, personable person in the way you teach, and obviously the way that you do business. And you've been doing quite a bit of work on social now. I noticed with Sage, you've done quite a bit of work with them. So how do you feel about the whole social media thing? Is it something you feel you do more of?
LinkedIn is my thing now. I used to use Facebook quite a lot, and I'm still on Facebook. I'm on Facebook personally, but for business, I felt a little bit disheartened. There were lots of, I belonged to a lot of groups on Facebook. I found it was more, this is what I've had for dinner last night, and too much nastiness with some of the comments. Somebody would be asking a genuine question because they wanted to know the answer. And some of the answers they were given were, well, if you're a bookkeeper or if you're an accountant, you should know the answer to this. Well, obviously they don't know the answer because they wouldn't be asking if they knew what the answer was. So there's lots of not very nice comments. So I decided to stick with LinkedIn, and I've been using Sage for, well, pretty much as long as Sage started, to be fair. And I was approached by Sage to do some product testing with them for their new Sage for Accountants. And then through that, I was asked by their social media people. So they asked me questions and then get me to put the answers on social media. And it's just giving me a little bit of confidence. And then a couple of weeks ago, as all my colleagues at the IAB know, and the rest of our ambassadors have had the joy of seeing it, I did a video. I did a small video, which was quite fun, just about how I dealt with stress in the workplace. So I'm becoming braver, but it's time as well, Sam. It's having the time to do it. And I sit in networking meetings and I hear these social media people marketing say, I'll do this for you and it will only cost you £750 a month. And I'm sitting there thinking, bloody hell, I'd like to be earning £750 a month. You know, I find they're very, you know, and all to people for getting the jobs, but I think in our sort of, it's very difficult. We deal with a lot of stuff that's confidential. So, you know, it's
a good platform though, I think, for you know, for you as well, especially in terms of how you work, and I suppose for many other bookkeepers as well who work locally. They're buying you as a person, you know, in terms of, so I think social media is a great platform for, you know, to have you, like you were with Sage, sitting there talking about how you deal with something, shows the kind of person that you are, you know, you can instantly someone can say, I could work with that person. I think it's you know, I think it's great that you are leading the charge, so to speak, in terms of video content, because it's something that I know time is precious, but you know, if you can take 5-10 minutes to record yourself, you know, it's a little bit daunting at first, but you know, once you get into the run of things, you know, it's a great content to get out there.
I mean, somebody said to me about doing training videos and putting them online, but the thing is I'd rather be training the people on what it is they actually want to know, because
Yeah,
some
well,
people
generic.
only want to know how to do one bit. So there's no point in my opinion, inundating them with loads of stuff when they
Mhm.
only want to know how to enter a purchase invoice onto the system,
Yeah.
or even upload a copy invoice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting concept though, isn't it? In term, I don't know
Yes.
whether you could make it work in some way, but it's maybe that's the next step.
Oh, you never know.
Now,
Yeah.
you've mentioned that, again, you're an IAB ambassador,
Yes.
and great at it, and thank you for all the work that you do, and collaborate with us on many
Mhm.
projects. And obviously helping people is a big part of who you are.
Yeah.
But from an ambassador perspective, what would you say you're most proud of? What would you see that particular mantle has helped you achieved?
Well, one of my members, oh, well, it's really weird. One of the members that's in my group is a lady that I saw every week on our original coffee mornings, and I
Right.
really liked her. And we've never spoken, but it was just, and then I kept seeing her name popping up everywhere, and then she became one of my members on my group, and it was lovely. And she's such a nice lady, and we support each other and we share information. And then
Yeah.
had another member, a gentleman, poor guy. There's 5 girls and 1 boy, but he's just recently had his AML inspection. So and he had some questions. He wasn't quite sure. So I was really proud to be able to send my firm policy to him and share it with him and say, look,
Yeah.
this is what I've got. Okay, you do accounts. I don't do accounts. So obviously there's nothing to do with accounts in my policy, but it will give you an idea of the wording that is required.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just the fact that they do pick the phone up. That's what I'm more proud about, is the fact that they will send me a WhatsApp message or pick up the phone, send me
Yeah.
an email and ask me for help. So yeah,
Oh,
I like that.
excellent.
Yeah, and vice versa, they return the favour to me if I need help with anything.
Good,
So
strong support group then.
yeah, and actually, as a group of ambassadors ourselves, we all support each other anyway.
Yes, yeah, you do.
We are there's a particularly Jennifer and Mohammed and
Yes, yeah.
yeah, to name a few.
It's a
But
great group. A
yeah,
great group.
and I like our meetings when we have our own meetings, and
Yeah.
as we're meeting up in May, aren't we? So
We are. That was my
yeah.
next thing. So Accountex is nearly upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we're having a bit of a meet the ambassador. So you and a few other of the ambassadors will be
Yes.
joining us on the stand, which I think will be a great asset to the stand, and also just for people to ask questions about what it's like to be a member and what it's like to work with the IAB rather than us standing there and fronting it. So I think
Yes.
it's a really a positive next step. But I suppose
Mhm.
Accountex, obviously it's an exhibition, but it's also an opportunity for networking, like you say. And if people are looking at this, maybe just about starting their career and using Accountex as a place to go in, investigate, what kind of advice, how do you use your time at Accountex?
Well, up until lockdown, so before lockdown, I used it, in all honesty, and everybody can laugh this, to see how much swag I could get. In all honesty, that was my whole reason for
Your
going.
objective.
And I was horrified at walking, I'd talk to somebody on a stand, and this hand would come in front of me and take their swag that they wouldn't even look. You'd see people piling bags up, which is a bit of a, yeah. And then the CIPP. So I then started to use it as the software people that I was dealing with, to go and actually speak to them in person, because it was such a good opportunity to be able to go and speak to somebody that would be helping me on the phone, to actually go meet them and see them face to face, and also go through with some of the queries that I had that they didn't quite understand when I was on the phone, so I could show them on a screen, and then to catch up with my friends at the CIPP. And then obviously once I became a member with you guys, it was just coming to say hi.
Yeah.
And and so it's good, you get a chance to actually speak to people face to face. The one piece of advice I would give to everybody that goes: do not sign up for anything at Accountex.
Right.
I signed up for a software product at Accountex and was stitched up royally through doing it.
Right. Interesting. So go away, do
Yeah.
your homework then, maybe
So,
investigate the options then.
Yeah, because they make it sound so wonderful, and some, honestly, sometimes it is wonderful, but actually take a step back and don't try not to get carried away with the event and the fact that they might have given you a free scanner or something for having a product demo. Just let them have your details, but don't actually sign up until you've maybe done a little bit more investigating about it. I was lucky, I was able to get out of the contract by the accountant that I work for. They signed up with this company, so they let me move away. But you know, it was a product, and it was going to be £27 a month, which was quite a lot of money for me. And then it went up to £180 a month, and they told me it wouldn't be going up. So it's just, you know,
it's a good piece of advice, because there is so many of them, and I suppose it's quite time pressured really when you understand, even though you think you've got all the time in the world, they're clearly wanting to be on to the next thing, next person. So it's a really good piece of advice.
It is. And then also take advantage of the free CPD stuff that's going on there as well. You know, there's always talks that are always going to be useful. And even if you're a Sage user, it's worth going to listen to a Zero talk, because 9 times out of 10, they're not actually talking about the product. They're talking about MTD or self-assessment or something, or even R&D. And you know, if I have a client that needed R&D, I'd put them onto their accountant personally and then move them on. Or if not, there's a contact that we've got at the IAB that I can put them onto. But it is useful to just go and listen to some of these talks. So don't be, oh, well, that's Sage and I use QuickBooks. Actually go and listen to some of their talks, because you can pick up a little bit of information from the background. So
excellent. No, that's great advice. And it's just to pick up on a point that you threw in there, Joyce, about CPD. And again, in your story that you wrote, you say that you like to take advantage of, you're saying, ourselves and the CIPP in terms of the free resource, and I guess that's something that you can help guide members in your ambassador group in terms of where to help generate their CPD. But what is the platforms that is your go-to for cost-effective CPD, so to speak?
Well, HMRC videos, webinars. Now, sometimes the people that are delivering them are sound like they're really not interested in what they're talking about, to be honest with you, but they're worth looking at. My go-to day, I'm reporting payroll and VAT returns to the Inland Revenue. So I'm hoping that if I'm going to get up-to-date, correct information, it's going to be from the Inland Revenue. So they're my go-to. And then obviously we've got the links with Kroner. And then for payroll, 9 times out of 10, I do speak to, there's a helpline with the CIPP, which we can phone up, but similar to the Kroner that we have at the IAB. So I try my hardest, because and YouTube videos now, watching YouTube videos.
That's interesting.
The Inland Revenue, I believe, I haven't actually looked at it myself, I'm pretty sure the Inland Revenue have got some YouTube stuff out there as well. So,
HMRC have as well, but that's a really good point to keep emphasizing that, because YouTube videos, they're just so quick and you can really build up your points, can't you? It's a really good piece of advice.
And the magazines, obviously, that we get. And it doesn't take long, but it's just like you can read up something about redundancy, for example, but I might not have a client that would make somebody redundant for 3 years later, so I would always double check the information as and when it comes, because it's worth keeping a little, keeping in the know, but it's always best just to check just before I won't advise a client. I'll tell a client and advise that they speak to a suitably qualified accountant for various things. So,
excellent. Well, as we kind of come to the end of our talk then, Joyce, what, I've asked for your words of wisdom in many areas while we've been talking, but if somebody, we're coming up to exam time now, a lot of our students may be listening to this. What's the, I don't know, main piece of advice, the key thing that you would tell someone, help somebody if they're just starting out in the industry or thinking of coming into bookkeeping? What's the main piece of advice that you would give?
If it feels in your gut that it's wrong, then don't go with it. So if you go for an interview and it feels wrong, don't take the job. If the job feels wrong, don't take the job. You know, I'm a great believer. It's when you're doing, you know, if it doesn't feel right, don't go with it. And also, it's your life. It's your decision. So, and don't beat yourself up if your exam results aren't that great, because there are always people like the IAB. And I actually had a conversation with somebody last week on a Zoom call that is exactly the same as me. He had dyslexia. He is now running a very large firm of accountants. He was also supported by the IAB, although he's no longer a member of the IAB, but he had the same feelings that I did, which was, you know, there is always an avenue. So if you really, really want to do it, you can do it. So,
and you're living proof of that, Joyce.
I am.
So
yeah.
that's great. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for
okay.
speaking to us.